Let's start by chatting about what went wrong yesterday with my third app exercise. So in this exercise, we saw that some of our training computers exercise worked perfectly, and on some of the others, it actually didn't. After looking into it after the course, I discovered some of the training machines had their firewalls turned on. So if you go to your Windows firewall, it should be turned off. And after I turned off the firewall, the exercise did work properly. So if you could try going to your Windows firewall and then turning it off, the exercise should work properly. And that's for exercise 3, my third app. So again, if you're just coming in, if you go to exercise 3, my third app, and it wasn't working for you yesterday, that's because some of the Windows firewalls were turned on when they should be turned off. So if you just go in yourself into Windows Firewall, you turn off both of these, then the exercise should work fine. All right, so the next order of business, if you shut down your command prompt last night that was running the HTTP server, we'll have to start that up again. So these are the same steps that we've seen before, but I'll just go through them again just in case anyone shut that off. So first we have to go to our home directory just by going cd/. Then we're going to navigate to the directory of the REST API. So I'll hit enter now. And then we're going to start the Python HTTP server. All right, and looks like everything's working fine, so I'll just minimize that. So that was exercise 16, just in case. And now the one last thing that we need to talk about before getting into the exercise today is I did notice yesterday there was a mistake in the My 5th App Begin page. Essentially what was missing was this little chunk here. The token was missing. So before we had a different, sorry, in 2018 we did have a different methodology of authorizing our web service URLs. It's been updated in 2019 to use the tokens like the rest of the system. So it is a little different. And the My 5th App wasn't updated properly. So we'll just have to change that manually ourselves. I chatted this out earlier, but I understand if you weren't in the class before it actually began, then you might have missed it. So I'm chatting it out again. But if you could go to line 221, so under My 5th App, line 221, copy and paste what I just chatted out to you. So paste that in. The only thing different should be that this token should then be visible here. And if you could do the same for line 243, 243 is another web service URL that was missing the token originally. So in line 243, if you could copy and paste that as well, then it should be corrected. If you do notice that you have an authorization mistake, that's the first thing to check, is that you have the line with the token visible. So it should be question mark token equals plus the token here. So I'm sorry for that mistake, but hopefully that doesn't catch anyone up. All right, so now that that's been taken care of, let's start the last exercise. So this last exercise builds on the one that we did before, where you're uploading a file and submitting it to Fme Server. But this time it's been modified and we've added some more HTML to it. So it now becomes a data validation app. So a user can upload a file and then the data will be validated, and they can choose to either stream that file back to them or download a file as well. So there'll be a map that's directly on the app. They can stream information to them, or then you can download the file as well. So open My Fifth App if you don't have it open already. It's under C, Fme Data 2019, Resources, REST API, My Fifth App begin.html. And we're going to scroll up and review the head section of our app. So here we can see not only do we have the Fme Server API, we also have Esri as well. That's because we're going to be streaming information to a map. And for this course, we use ArcGIS maps. You can also use Google Maps or Mapbox, and there are instructions on the Fme Playground on how to use those. However, the reason why we use Esri maps in this course is because it doesn't require any authorization, so you don't need a token. So it makes it much less complicated when sharing with other people. Next, we have a body section of the app, and this is between lines 17 to 67. And this just gives an overview of what this application does. So essentially between lines 24 to 36, we're instructing the user what to do with this application. So the page will load, and then the user can upload a file. They can choose to display it on the map. If everything is okay, the geometry will appear in all blue. If anything is incorrect, they'll get some red on their map so they know they have something to fix here. If the validation does not pass the test, they can then download the results and have that returned back to them so they can see exactly where they went wrong. Lines 37 to 42 are the same as the last exercise. So there's a button to refresh and get the file list. We can also see that the file list is here, and there is an option. There is a form called Options, with the options are the published parameters of the workspace that we're viewing. We also have a div for the map here, and that's where our map will go. And then we have a div for the end when we have the translation results. So line 69 has the variables we saw in the last exercise. But then on line 71, there's also included the variables that we'll need in this exercise. So we have a layer and a map. And this is so we can stream something to the ArcGIS map. So the first step we need to do is on step 5, lines 83 and 84. We need to update our Fme server to our public IP address and then update our token as well. So before we used localhost or Fme training, because we didn't have an Esri map to stream back to. If you're like me and you hit your maximum of your IP address that you can look up, you can also Google what is my IP address. But essentially, if you're doing something within Fme itself and it's not reaching out to a third-party application, then you can use your Fme training. If you are using something with Esri, you'll need to either have a publicly available DNS or your IP address that's publicly available as well. To get that, you can visit what is my IP address or simply Google what is my IP address and copy and paste that into your server link. The next thing we can do is get our token. So you can copy and paste this onto line 84. All right, so once you've completed that, we can see that lines 87 to 94 are the same as the last exercise. So first, we're setting the workspace. Then we're using that get session function to find the JS ID or the session. So each of our data uploads go to a different folder on our Fme server. And then we'll use generate options to get the published parameters for this workspace. Next, we need to initialize the map, and this occurs on line 96 to line 103. So the base map, we're choosing streets. We're also choosing the center as well. The minimum zoom will be set to 14. So the base map is found on line 98, update that to streets. The center is line 99, and update that to these coordinates here. And then on line 100, you can set the zoom as well. So next, we're on step 6 now, looking at line 108 to 113. We'll also add our server and our token in here, as well as our repository and our workspace. So the repository will be under web application. The workspace is web app map.kml.fmw. We'll have to set our server as well, and this will be with our public IP address. And we'll have to set up the token. So that was on line 110. The repository will be set to web application. Be careful of the capitalization here. It's a capital W and a capital A. Our workspace will be set to webapp.kml.fmw. Our server, which is on line 112, can be found by going to our public IP address. And then our token is on 113, and just update that to your token. So next we have the generate options function. This is on line 116 to 122. So in this exercise, we're going to set the workspace and then get the workspace parameters. So this will be the repository. The parameters that we need to fill out here are the repository in the workspace. And then this is sent to the callback function, which is build options, which we can see right down here. So build options is the same as what we saw in the previous exercise. This will create inputs for users to fill out their published parameters. And a loop is created to create a button when a user wants to upload their data. So if it detects a file, it'll create a button that the user can select to upload their data. Lines 161 to 167 have the upload file function. So this is the same as the previous one. First, we're going to set the workspace and then call the data upload function. This uses the repository, the workspace, the file input, and the JS ID, which is from the get sessions function, which creates a new session. And then this is sent to the callback function, which is process files. Next, we need to modify the stream results function. Stream results is on line 201 to 230. On line 203, we need to complete this statement. So if blank, the map will then remove a layer. So if there is a layer, we would like to remove a layer from the map. So if there is one present, we don't want that to be there anymore, so we're going to remove it. So on line 203, in the parentheses, write layer. So if layer, we're going to remove a layer. Next in our function, we are loading the Esri components. So we're loading a KML layer because we're streaming a KML. We're finding if there are files present. And then on line 221, we're going to have a web service URL, which will stream back using the data streaming service, a KML layer directly to that map. So this is where the token was missing before. So if you are on line 221 and you don't see a token here, please let me know and I'll chat out to you the correct line here. So you should definitely have a token here. And on line 221, you can actually copy and paste it from here because it's correct in the manual. If you scroll down to the right, we have JSID commented out. So we just need to uncomment that on this line. This line can actually be copied and pasted directly from the user manual as well. So on line 221, there's two things you need to look out for. First, please ensure you have a token here. And the second is originally in the manual, this JSID will be commented out. We need to uncomment that. So this is how you set up a web service URL using different variables from your web application. So first we have the server, and then we have what service the web service URL is running under. We're using the repository and the workspace. And then we have a question mark to start our query string parameters. And then the token. And the token here as well. So this could be hard-coded in, but it makes more sense to have it at the beginning of the application. So if the token ever expires, you only have to set it in one location. Next, we have our publish parameter here. So this is our source data set, and this is something that won't change every time. So it's going to go to our shared resource system, then temp, then upload. And from there, it'll go to the repository, the workspace, followed by the JSID that we set in the get session function, followed by the file name that was uploaded with when the user decided to upload the file. All right. So we had one public parameter or publish parameter where the file was stored, and then we're using the full path to find the upload file. And then on line 224 to 226, we're taking this file, the KML that was produced here, and then we're adding it to the ArcGIS layer and displaying it directly onto a map. Next, we can review the download workspace section. So here it's actually going to download a file for us. It is using Fme data streaming as well. And that's because it's producing an HTML page. So we'll have to click on it to open it up, and it'll open up in a new browser. So there we're using data streaming. And just ensure on line 243 that the token is present as well. And we're actually running a different workspace here. So that will be under web app download results, and that's just hard coded into the path. So on line 243, we don't need to modify anything, but just make sure that the token is present in that line. And if it's not present, please let me know and I'll chat out the correct line again. All right, and then we have another function on line 275 to 306. And this will create a new session. So if a user is uploading multiple files, or they tried one file and they didn't like the results, so they wanted to try it again, but they didn't want to refresh the page to do that, we're going to have to get a new session. Just remember, every time you upload a file, essentially, Fme server won't understand which file you're actually going to use if it's in the same folder. So that's why we use get session to create a new folder for that file to go to. In new session, we're doing that again, so a user can check multiple files at once without having to refresh their page. So on line 276, we need to fill out the correct function to create a new session. So to create a new session, we're going to use the get session function. So you can copy and paste. Sorry, this is actually incorrect. This should be on line 226 instead of 227. But the first function should be the get session function. So first, we're going to get the session using the repository in the workspace, and that's going to be sent to the callback function, which is set vars. The next function that we need to set is get data uploads. So what this is going to do is when a user clicks that they want a new session, then it's automatically going to refresh the data uploads, so they should see nothing has been uploaded. This will also kick off process files, which will refresh the current file list. So the file list will be empty and they'll receive a new JS ID. From here, we can save this HTML file and open up our token permissions. So if you go to your Fme server and you log in with the admin account, you can go to your user settings, go to manage tokens, and find the tokens here. Then under repositories, we need to give permissions to the web application repository. So give it read, run, and download permissions. Scroll down and click OK. Now if we follow this link, so on line 14 or step 14, we can now test out the application. So if you go to choose file, under C Fme Data 2018, Resources, REST API, My Fifth App, Data, you can select the good or the bad data, but I'll select the bad data first, and upload the file. Then I can click to display the results on the map. For this, you do have to be a little patient. And then I can download the results as well. So I can see here there's some red, there's some stuff I do need to fix within my map. So then I can download the results and click here. And then this should provide me with an HTML file with all the areas I need to fix. So that's the end of the exercise. I'll give everyone a few moments to catch up. As always, please ask questions. For the remainder of the day, I'll give everyone some time to catch up, ask any questions that they need to ask. We'll go through the course wrap up, and then I'll be answering questions from previous days that people may have had. Also, if you need help with any other exercises after we're done 21, please let me know. We'd always be happy to help. Okay, perfect. So it looks like we are ready to get going again. So I'll just do the course wrap up now, which is on chapter 10. If you do need any help with anything, we have several resources you can go to. First, you can go to our SAFE website. You can also go to our support team or our local partner. We do have a SAFE blog. This often features things that we just introduced into the product. So if you want to get the most up-to-date FME information, that's definitely where you should go. We also have manuals and documentation as well that you can read through. So if you're brand new to Fme Server, I would definitely recommend looking through the Fme Server documentation. We also have our REST API documentation here as well. We also have the Fme Community. So on the Fme Community, you can go and chat with other people who are working on the same problems that you are working on. So when you come on live chat or you ask a question, we might not have all the industry information that you have. So you might not be able to assist you as well as someone else who's in the same industry as you are and working on the same problems. So that's why we definitely recommend asking a question on community. We also have the knowledge base where we post articles, forums, and the idea exchange. We do have a YouTube channel as well if you'd like to see our videos. We do really appreciate getting any feedback possible. So you can fill in a feedback form now, or it's also emailed to you at the end of the course. So if you are troubleshooting and you're having any trouble with your Fme server, the first place to go is our Fme Server Troubleshooting Guide. If you're working on something yourself and you are having any errors, we do have the REST API documentation that gives you all of the error codes possible. Also, if you'd like to go do a debugging tutorial in Chrome, it's very handy. And so thank you everyone for attending today. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent now, answering a question that someone had yesterday. So the question was, what if you don't want to hard code or have people choose the workspace and the repository in their workspace, that they'd like to run? What if they don't know the name of the workspace? What if you want to give them a list? I just thought that was a really good question. So I'd go, we don't have any documentation on this right now using this in JavaScript, but I can kind of go through how I would solve this problem if I was given it. So if you go to your Fme server, go to the help and go to the REST API documentation. go to API, and in here you should be able to find your repositories. For some reason, my virtual machine is running very slow. But if I were able to access my repositories, you'd be able to see that there is a call to list all the workspaces within a repository. So you could have this REST call automatically run within your JavaScript. So now if you wanted to take a REST call and turn it into JavaScript, I'd recommend using Postman. You can enter your code in here, or your REST call, and then generate a code snippet with it. So with your REST call, you could create a code snippet. And for this, I recommend under JavaScript, go to XHR, and then copy and paste this in once you've filled out your REST call in there. And that's the first place I'd start. You'll have to write some JavaScript to do that because we don't have that JavaScript code written out, but it is definitely a possibility if you were interested in that. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the Fme Server Playground. So a lot of the exercises I went through in this part of the course were developed from Fme Server Playground examples. So I took the examples that already existed and then I made them more interesting to me. But we have lots of examples out there using lots of different formats. So I used all Esri in this course to make things more simple with the tokens. However, under our data visualization, we have Esri, but then we also have Bing, we have Google, we have Open Layers and Mapbox. So if you're interested in doing any of these things, but you don't want to work with Esri, you definitely don't have to. As well as the developer section, we also have the demos. So if you were interested in doing anything, you could definitely go to the demos first and then click the Learn button. This will give you the HTML files and the JavaScript files that are used, as well as instruct you how to set all of this up. So I'm not receiving any more questions. If you do have any questions, please let me know. Just chat it out to us and Laura and I can do our best to answer them. However, if you don't have any more questions, have a great day. And you've successfully completed the full REST API course. So I'll turn off my microphone now